It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce the Heimowitz family. It's Aaron Heimowitz and Denise, and your maiden name was?
Langer.
Langer. And you were born in France.
I was born in Paris.
So,
okay, Mrs. Heimowitz was born a twin. She never celebrated her birthday because her birthday was on Yom Kippur. And as a young girl, she wanted to have a birthday party. And they said, on Yom Kippur, we don't have birthday parties. So that was one of her traumas in life, not having a birthday party. This is a sense of humor. Her father was a Rav in Paris, the Montevideo Shul. Shuls in Paris was Ohel Avraham. They didn't use the name of the shul. It was the street. So there's the Rue Kadeh, means the street on Kadeh, that's where the shul was. Rue Montevideo. Rue means street. She went to public school in Paris. She did not write on Shabbos, even though the school was in session on Shabbos, I think, at that time. And her mother, who was born in Germany, in Ostkirchen, a small little town in Germany, used to decide where to go for vacations. And this is her mentality. I'm going to ask the doctor, where should I go for my vacation? In the mountains or the seashore? Now, I never heard of anybody asking a doctor, where should I go on vacation? They usually decided on their own. So one time they were in Montreux, which is in the French Alps. That's where they went for their vacation. And at other times they went along the ocean. What was the name of the, Denise, what was the name of the ocean?
I don't know. The North Sea.
The North Sea. Okay. Yeah, that's what Dunkirk was. So then the Nazis, Yamach Shemo, started a war in 1939 in Europe, and they attacked France. And the French, who lost a lot of soldiers, actually young men, in the First World War, surrendered in a few days. So they said, we don't want to lose a lot of more young men, so they surrendered to the Nazis. And the Nazis said, okay, we'll take care. We won Paris. That was a trophy for the Fuhrer. He would stand on the Champs-Élysées and say, see, I'm now the ruler of the world. I'm the ruler of Paris. To him, that was a big deal. And the collaborators said, we'll take care of the southern part, and that was called the Vichy part of France, and the northern part was the Nazis. So all the Jews, knowing that the Nazis were against the Jews very strongly, fled Paris and went down to Marseille. And it was a long trip because the roads were very cluttered with people fleeing. Some had cars, some had wheelbarrows. They didn't have what do they call it? Nowadays we have wheelchairs. At that time there wasn't any wheelchairs, so if a person was an elderly person, he would sit in a wheelchair and the family would take him down south. And Moshe Schweitzer, that was Omar is grandmother in German, was an elderly man in the 80s, and he couldn't walk, so he went in a wheelchair. And as they're fleeing, and there were thousands of people fleeing down south, he said, my dear family, I'm holding you off, because I can't go quickly, I have to go very slowly. They said, but Opa, we're not going to leave you. No, I want you to leave me. And that was a big decision. Should they leave their father in the middle of nowhere in Belgium? That was where they were fleeing. And they went to various farms in Belgium, And they said, we have an elderly person, he's in very bad health, would you please take him in? And most of the farmers said, no. If he's a Yid, we're not going to get involved. So, but one farmer said, okay, I'll take him in. And he took him in, and this is unfortunately the last day of his life. And this is a Nes Min Hashamayim. This elderly farmer took him in, and all of a sudden, a Nazi Yamach Shemo officer came to this little farm. He said, who is this? He said, oh, this is some elderly Jew, and he's in bad shape. Now, normally, what the Gestapo, the Nazis would do, they would take out a gun and shoot him. For some reason, this Nazi officer was compassionate. He said, I will stay with him. That was a Nes Min Hashamayim. So when he was nifter that evening, there was a Nazi officer protecting him, which was very unusual.
Can I ask, Denise, what year were you born?
I'm not telling you.
She
I was a little girl at the beginning of the war. Now you want me to tell you from...
What do you...
excuse me, are you finished?
No. You want me to continue, or you tell me what you want?
Whatever you remember...
Yes.
Okay, let me finish. So, this is an interesting chapter. The farmer said, we have to bury this elderly person. They still had respect, even though he was a Jew. And they went to the Christian Goyish cemetery. They said, we don't bury Jews in our cemetery. He'll be buried outside the cemetery. So they found a plot outside the cemetery, and Opa Moshe Schweitzer was buried there. Why is this important? Because after the war, his son came looking for him and was able to find his body. So that's a separate parsha.
His grave.
His grave, yes. And so they continued down, going 3 weeks down from Paris to Marseille. Omar rented a farmhouse, a room, so they stayed there for a few days. They even stayed in a castle, an old castle, because everybody was fleeing, they need some shelter. And the castles had a unique situation. Castles were built hundreds a year before without electricity, without bathrooms. Could you imagine living in a castle? You had to go outside to the outhouse. And Denise remembers when, as a little girl, middle of the night she had to go to the bathroom. She was afraid to go out, so she would schlep her twin sister, Alice, come with me, so the goblins shouldn't get me. So this was how, a little girl. And they ended up in Marseille, where they went to school, and that's the next parsha, how they went from Marseille to America. Now I'll turn it over to Denise Langer, Heimowitz, who will give her version and fill you in with important facts that I may have left out.
Oh boy. Do you have any questions?
Well, what is your earliest memory?
My first memory is we were in Mont d'Or. My mother used to ask the doctor if she should take us to the sea. My husband said that to the seashore or to the mountains. And this, in the spring, the doctor said, go to the mountains. So we were in the mountains in Mont d'Or. And I don't remember too much else. You have to remember we always had a help with us. In other words, everybody had a maid. You didn't have to be wealthy or anything else. Everybody traveled with a maid. Okay. So, why am I telling you this? Because we were walking, this maid and I, we were friendly. She was maybe 10 years old, 20 years old, that they had come from Bretagne, and it was a big deal for these maids, for these young women, to work for families in Paris. And since when the war broke out, I remember very clearly, I told the maid, I think we were already, it was September 1st, 39. And I remember saying, do you speak French a little bit?
You stand a little.
La guerre a éclaté, means the war broke out. And it was a big deal. La guerre, well, I was a little girl, what did I know about la guerre? But then, next thing I remember, my mother took us, my 3 siblings and myself, I'm one of 4, my older brother, an older sister and another sister, and we went to Paris. And there I remember, Wilmont was in the Alps, was a vacation spot. We left there and we went to Paris, and there I remember going to school because it was September or something and we had to go to school. And I remember once, I think my father had bought a box of fancy chocolate, and I remember bringing it to my teacher, my maîtresse, and I was very, very proud. Here was this little French, little girl. Now you have to remember that at that time there was no such thing as Jewish and not Jewish. We went to a public school, and it was irrelevant what you were. Nobody classified the children in terms of religion. It wasn't a concern. Nobody knew about it until years later. Well, not years later. And aside remind. Okay, so I'll remember when at the proper time. Okay, I'll insert it here. At this time, okay, so we were in Paris, and we went. My mother decided maybe it's safer to take us northwest near, maybe it was, and there was the first time that I heard planes. Planes wasn't unusual. It was not. I mean, it wasn't unusual. Heard planes. And then next thing I knew, we were back in Paris. What we were doing northwest, I think maybe my mother was trying to find a safe place. I'm not sure, but then we went back to Paris. Next thing I know is a friend of mine, this is really an aside, but like what little children remember, and if people can learn from it. One, there were 2 big Jewish sections of Paris. One where we lived, they were not particularly religious. I mean, I can't help it. My father was rabbi of the Rue Montevideo, that shul. Paris is divided into arrondissements. It's like sections. So we were in the 16th, which was fancy. Okay, and the Frum Jews were in I think the 5th or the 1st. I'm not sure. The 5th. Okay, and one of my friends got burned. She played with matches, and she lit a match. And she wanted to extinguish it, so she stepped on it to extinguish it. But this match didn't want to be extinguished under her foot, and it flamed up.
Ignited.
Well, it was already ignited, but it burned her arms. She survived. We were together then in Marseille and then in America. Okay, but that's besides the point. Let me go on. My father at this time was a chaplain in the French army. As a matter of fact, I had a picture of the 3 religions. Jewish. My father was in his army uniform with the Magen David, a Catholic and a Protestant. We lost that picture. I suspect somebody stole it, but okay, that's a long time ago. So anyway, we came to, and then we went south. My mother knew that the Germans, with, I'm sorry to say, the collaboration of the French, they were not totally innocent. We like to think that, certainly from the viewpoint of our modern times, because today we categorize they're pro-German, against German, that kind of thing. The Jews were not safe. My mother knew it. She was born in Germany, and she knew the Germans would stop at nothing. My father he was born in Alsace. And when my mother married my father, how did they meet? He was in the German army in the First World War and the French army in the Second World War. First World War, he met my mother because her family provided kosher food for the Jewish soldiers. And then he went to meet the family, and he met my mother. Okay, and that was it. And then she moved to Paris in 6 months. She spoke French. Until 1939, and she said, we have to leave. And by this time, my father was constricted, mobilisé. What do you call that? Conscripted. Conscripted in the army. Okay.
And he did not want to leave it. That's important.
Well, that was in Marseille. That was later. So we went south, and because my father was a chaplain in the army, we were able to sit in a car. There were thousands of people fleeing the north where the Germans were. You have to remember, the French hate the Germans. That is a rule. I don't know how much the Germans hate the French, but the French hate the Germans. And when they heard that the Germans were coming, the Germans did pick on the Jews. The French was safe. So they picked on anyway. So we went south with, and I remember one of the instances was everybody had ration cards. The government has to apportion the amount of food that it has so people don't starve. It's not fun to starve. Causes rebellion, causes all sorts of negative feelings. So we were in a small town. I mean, when you say small, Saint Nicolas was nothing there, 3 houses maybe. And so my mother would send our Maria, the girl who was with us, to the market, and she would buy sugar, flour, and other necessities, and my mother made sure that we were never hungry. These necessities, because my mother would bake or whatever, and I don't remember being hungry. I do remember this Maria, my daughter-in-law. Some young man came to interview me. I forgot to tell you.
Amazing.
You think I have stories to hear her parents. Anyway, so Maria taught me how to ride a bike. She held on to the bike, and my mother was afraid to buy. She didn't want to buy us a bike because we would fall and break our feet. So I had to grab quickly, and Maria held on to the seat. She said, "Vas-y, vas-y, go, go, go," and I drove. And I rode off, and that's how I learned how to ride a bike. But anyway, we were on the way south, and I cannot say that we were afraid. First of all, I was a little kid, and if you feel your parents' protection, you're not afraid. You know your parents are going to protect you. So we arrived first we were in Toulouse. I had an aunt there. Yeah, and then we finally arrived in Marseille.
And your father was with you?
No, my father was in the army. I remember one Hanukkah, for some reason, might have coincided with Christmas. I don't remember. My father was let go from the army, and we were still in Paris. This is in 1939, and he had a furlough. And I remember we lived in the Schul building, and The ground floor was for the vestiaire where the men hung their coats, and the men the daven. The second floor was for the women. The third floor was where there were school rooms. Fourth floor was the shamash. We lived on the fourth. I remember running down from the fifth floor to because my father was there. We ran and we were so happy to see him. I have no idea how long he was away. And then after that we didn't see him, but we didn't see him anymore. And my mother took charge. She was kind of a take charge person, and we went in a car. As luck would have it, the driver's name was Rabbin, having nothing to do with being a rabbi. R-A-B-I-N, like Rabin, Rabin, Yitzhak Rabin. It was a French name. So there was Rabbin, the driver, and Rabbin, my father, for a while. But then he had to leave, and we went down to Marseille. And my mother then, we rented an apartment, and it was like a complex. And there were a lot of Jews there. They were all trying to run away. And we were one of the few, yes. Most of them were not French born. They had come from Belgium, from Germany, from I don't know, all over. Their language was French, and they were trying to get visas, etc., etc. But my father really did not want to leave. He felt he was French, and it's going to be all right, and he was going to be protected. My mother knew better.
You also had a congregation.
Not much. Okay, my husband says he had a congregation. The congregation was the Sherita Pleta, the people who managed to have gotten down to Marseille somehow or other, because Marseille is a port, and from there they would get a ship, either go to Israel, or which we didn't know about. We didn't know Israel from, from Korea. We didn't know, plain and simple. It's very surprising. And then from Marseille, we got tickets to come to America. What else?
And when did your father join you in Marseille?
He was in Marseille, then he was Rosh Kehillah. He was head of the Jewish community.
In Marseille? In
Marseille, yes. As a matter of fact, this I would say heard about. We were already long in America. My mother told me that it seems that some French people or the Nazis did come for my father within a week after we left. He was Rosh, there's no doubt, he was the head of the community.
He was the chief rabbi of Paris and the chief rabbi of
not of Paris, okay, all right, yes.
He was the chief rabbi of Paris?
No, not really. He was
the chief rabbi of Paris and the chief rabbi of the French army.
Anyway, so he had a very good friend who had been brought up with him in Alsace. And this friend was a lawyer, Mathieu Muller. And they lived across the street from us. And one day, remember, my father did not want to leave. It's going to be all right, tout ira bien, it'll be okay. And this lawyer, this Mathieu Muller, his good friend, lawyer, said he used to defend. He was always in telephone. Don't forget, there weren't phones like today. You pick up a phone. It wasn't like that. So Mathieu was in contact with people far from Marseille.
Denise, he was the head of the
told us, yes, he was head of the Aguda. And he said he heard that the wait a minute, what did he hear?
On the telephone operator.
Yes, he heard that the Jews were going to be rounded up. That it was going to be very bad for the Jews. Mathieu heard that. And when my father's friend reported that he went with his 5 daughters to Switzerland. They had visas because he had a lot of money you had to pay, and we were very fortunate. We had tickets to America. My mother had a brother here, and my father had an uncle and a cousin. My mother had a brother. Anyway, they all pooled. They both had relatives here, and they pooled money so that they, excuse me, to buy. Daniel, do you mind giving me a glass of water?
Yes, one more.
You had to put a amount of money as a guarantee that you're not going to be a dependent upon.
Well, that's the American. Thank you, sweetie.
That was in America, and
Thank
your
you, Daniel.
relatives in America put up the money to guarantee that they would not become in charge of the Americans. Because remember, America was coming out of the recession, and there was a lot of Americans who say we don't want any foreigners coming here and taking the few jobs that we have now. So
It's fine, Daniel.
And can I ask, did your father, was he close with Rabbi Guggenheim? Or did you ever hear the name Rabbi Guggenheim?
In Paris?
Or in France?
What years?
Also around this time?
During the war? No. Never heard the name. It's possible.
And there was a
My
Rabbi
father
Monk.
was not that talkative.
Rabbi Monk. There was
Monk.
Eli Monk.
Eddie Monk.
He
We
was
were
friendly.
very friendly with him.
And we were very
Yes.
friendly with him.
Yes, with Rabbi Monk.
Because he, I think, was also in Marseille.
I don't remember him at Marseille, but I know that they all survived. They went to Switzerland. They were saved and they went to Switzerland. We never went. We went through. So anyway, let me explain to you. If it's the visas arrived, my mother was very happy. My father was not so happy because, as I told you, he didn't really want to come. But anyway, we left.
Do you know the date roughly when you left?
may we?
What?
The date when you left Marseille?
Okay, I can tell you we arrived September 12th, 1941. We arrived in America. The ship, the ship took a month. From Marseille, we went to Seville for a few days in Spain. Now, Spain was I shouldn't say it, but dirty. They had just come out of a civil war. And I'll never forget, we were in some kind of a hotel. It was hot, disgusting, dirty, and the people were in all shapes of disheveled and despondent. Spain, as far as I know, I remember, was a very bad experience. But let me explain to you. My mother was a smart woman, and before we left Marseille, I'll never forget, she bought I would say maybe 18-inch long bread. Okay, a loaf of bread. And I remember her wrapping it up, wrapping it up in wet, damp. And around the damp newspaper, she wrapped it in towels so that we should never go hungry. On the way through Spain, I told you that Spain had just come out of a recession or civil war. There's nothing worse than okay, we should never know. The train stopped someplace. Nobody knew Spanish, but anyway, it stopped. And I remember little urchins, young boys, climbing up to the windows of the train and stealing what you have in a cabin, a compartment. You had compartments where families lived. 2 benches facing each other, okay? And on top of the compartment you have a shelf where you had they had the valises. Anyway, these little urchins would come and grab whatever they could. Some of the men had their hats hanging someplace. These kids would grab anything. They were hungry, and they used to beg, pane. They were hungry after the Civil War there. But anyway, we left from Cadiz or Seville, one of the two cities. Which is a port? Cadiz. Okay, from Seville, we stayed there maybe 24 hours, not long, not a nice place. We went to Cadiz, and from there we took the ship. We boarded the ship.
Could you describe the ship, Denise?
Were there a lot of refugees on the ship?
Only.
Jewish, all Jewish.
All Jews. Now the ship was divided in 2. In the front were the men, and they had, I think, 3 tiers. On the bottom was 1 man, and then 2. I don't remember, at least 2. Yeah, near the floor, and then maybe 14, 16 inches above that was another bed, and on top of that, so 3 levels of beds. There was a lot of sickness on the ship.
1,200 people were in the ship.
What?
1,200 people were on the ship.
1,200.
I don't know. This I don't remember, but I do remember. And you know, this stays with you. There was in my, as I said, the men slept in the front and the women slept in the back. In my father's area, there were no cabins. There were 2 or 3 cabins, and that was for very wealthy people. Okay. And this is not very ladylike, but I remember an elderly man sitting on a potty in the cabin. Maybe he was sick. The sanitary conditions were beyond awful. You had the bathrooms, you had 4 stalls. Most of them did for women and 4 stalls for men. I don't know about the men, but anyway, there were no doors. Okay, you get used to it. No door. That's not the, you know. My sister got very sick. I think she had typhoid fever or something, and no, that was Bermuda, sorry. And the ship stopped in Bermuda. And there, the first time in 4 weeks, we saw grass. You know what it's like to see grass? And the Bermuda authorities, or whoever it was, said it's okay for the children to go off and to run around on the grass. As luck would have it, the ship stopped on Shabbos, when it is generally not. You know, you can't board and leave a ship. It's Shabbos. So my father, Shalom, and another, he did not take the responsibility on his own. First of all, he was too modest. Secondly, he was too, didn't want. I mean, like, not nasty in any way. He didn't want to be responsible by himself. He and another rabbi asked, they conferred, what do we do? These children have been on this ship for 3 weeks. The conditions were not very good, if I'll tell you later. And now they can go on, they can get off the ship. The Red Cross, I think it was, allows the kids to run around. And we got candy and orange. the Red Cross gave us an orange. Can you imagine? It was amazing. But my father and this other rabbi converted, and they said, yes, the kids can get off. Okay, the children got off, and some women got off too. Big deal. You know, when you look at it in retrospect, they also wanted to get off. Okay, right, we don't judge. We got her back on the ship, and then we stopped, that was Bermuda, and then we stopped off in Cuba. Now what I forgot to say is that there were always the requins. What are those fish that eat people? Sharks. There were always sharks following the ship because the ship, you don't need a garbage can, you just throw it over the. Now my older sister reports. We cannot confirm it. I don't know about my brother. He wasn't part of this. My sister reports that she saw. See, my father was the rabbi, so it's possible that she was right near him, that they buried two people. There was illness on the ship. And you couldn't leave them in the ship because there was no sanitary facilities, certainly no doctor. There was a doctor, but he was busy. I don't know what he was doing. And Janine's, my sister, said they threw the people overboard. She says that she saw it. We did not. I think she did. I mean, what are you going to do with people? Okay, then we arrived in Cuba, and a lot of people got off. And being that my sister was very sick, so the American authorities wanted to take her off in Cuba and airlift her to my uncle near Princeton. I had an uncle who had a farm near Princeton. My mother said, nothing doing, we stay together. My mother was a smart woman. So my sister stayed with us, and we landed in Brooklyn, New York. We did not see the Statue of Liberty, and then we arrived in America, and it was a big, big deal. And we arrived in my uncle's farm. He did not own the farm. I didn't realize that. He was just, I don't know.
He met you at the dock.
At the dock, sure. And he took us, I don't remember anything about luggage or anything, he took us to a place called Skillman, New Jersey, which is right near outside of Princeton, and that's where my uncle said, there are black people here, but don't be afraid, they're fine. Well, what did we know about black people? We had never seen one in our life. So the following morning, my sister and I are in bed, and we see a black person at the door. They had the kitchen help was black, and the men in the and they, good morning or something. We didn't speak English. We saw them. We covered our heads. We were afraid of seeing these black people. And we went to school in a two-room schoolhouse, literally. And the teacher there was thrilled to have these French-speaking students. She said she's going to learn French. Well, what can I tell you? We learned English a lot faster than she learned French. I don't remember learning to speak English. And then about 5 months later, by this time my father was already in New York looking for work. He was a rabbi. And there was a French community in exile. Those who had, as a matter of fact, I forgot a very important point. My father didn't want to leave France, I told you. So one day, I don't know, he's doing something at the American embassy, and he sees one of his congregants from Paris, Charles Steindecker. And he sees him there at a booth there where people who want to leave fix their papers to leave. And when my father saw this congregant wanting to leave, so then he agreed with my mother, and we left. It seems this was, the French said, within a week, the French came for my father because he was Rocher, he was head of the... But my mother saved us.
Could you mention what happened in Kursk? What Opa did once a month?
My father used, west of Marseille was an internment camp. They took all the Germans, the Jews. You had to be Jewish, and you were sent to Gurs. They did not kill you there. It was clearly not a killing camp, but it was certainly no what do you call it?
Picnic.
No picnic.
It was internment.
No, it was an internment camp, and the French were helping them. Oh, they're French. Come, you go to Gurs, and from there they shipped them east. So we were very fortunate.
And your father, did he have any connection with Gurs?
With Gurs, yes, he used to visit them. He used to bring them food to the people. I remember him buying food and bringing. Don't forget, he had no car. I don't know how he went. We didn't question how do you go there, but he used to visit the interned people, the internees in Gurs, and bring them food. If you check Rabbi Simon Langer, you might see it. And Gurs then was I don't know what happened, but you can Gurs. It was east of this is west of Marseille, and people were interned there, and don't know what happened to them. The lucky ones, I guess, went to America, and the unlucky ones didn't go.
Were you sad to leave France?
Excuse me?
Were you upset to leave France?
Sad?
When you left, when you went on the...
We did what my mother said. There was no such thing as sad. You know, there was we went in the middle of the night. My mother said, "Nous quittons, we go." My mother was very smart, and she did not tell us very much. You see, kids talk. She didn't want us to talk. Therefore, because I'll never forget, we were coming home from school, my sister and I, and our classmates, they were talking about the fathers, and they asked, "What does your father do?" So they said, "He's a priest." They burst out. She translated rabbi into priest. Made sense to her. They burst out laughing. Then she turned to me, "Qu'est-ce qu'il rit? Pourquoi est-ce qu'il rit? Why are they laughing?" We didn't even know. And then we found out. And they were the refugee, in other words, the people who were lucky enough to leave from Paris and from northern France, south of Vichy. You see, Vichy was the east-west demarcation line between north and... The Germans administered Vichy, and Paris was in Vichy. And in the south, it was the French, but they weren't particularly, not that I know, were particularly friendly to the Jews. The Jews still had to scramble to leave, and a lot of them from Marseille, it was a port, and they were glad to be there. And Mathieu Müller, my father's, oh yes, I told you, he used to kibitz with the telephone operators. In those days, you didn't just dial, so he used to have its telephone operator, and he kibitzed. "Ah, comment ça va?" And so she told Maître Müller. Maître, it means, you know the title? No, like, sir. How would you address an important judge? Sir. Yes, sir. Yes. So, what am I telling you? So, Maître Müller, the telephone operator, once told him, "Sir, Monsieur Maître Müller, the Germans are coming." So then he took his family, his 5 daughters, and Alice Müller. Alice, his wife, was from southern Spain, from the Toastfists. That's how far back she was from. Alice Müller, he took his 5 daughters and wife, and they ran away to Spain, to Switzerland.
How did the French describe the Germans?
Les Boches. Did you ever hear the word Les Boches?
Derogatory.
B-O-C-H-E, Les Boches. With hatred, it means the Germans. Not the Jews. Les Boches arrivent, or les Boches, blah, blah.
And when you were in Marseille, did you have non-Jewish friends as well, or was it mainly...
No. Now, it could be that there were non-Jewish kids in school, but there was no such thing as Jewish and non-Jewish. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't a factor.
And Shabbat, you had to go to school?
In Paris, we did go to school on Shabbos.
But you didn't write.
Like you didn't
I
write?
don't think we wrote. Well, weren't there that long. As I said, we came back from that... Did I tell you about going in a castle? He told you. It was northwest of Paris, and we went with the maid. And, I mean, you didn't have, the maid. Maria was her name, and she watched over us. She made sure that we were okay. And I remember we had to go to the bathroom. There were no water, there was no...
Well, what happened to the maid? Did you stay in touch with her?
No, I think by the time we left, we arrived, we were in Saint-Nicolas de la Grave, a little town that makes this room look big. There was nothing there. There was an old, and my mother rented a house. One big, it was a room. No, there were 2 rooms. One where we slept. My father came from the army to visit us, and I remember he brought a chicken. And he slaughtered the chicken, and we had chicken. That was a big deal. And the maid, Maria, and my brother would go to the market or Monday, Thursday, and they had these cards, ration cards. So they would buy sugar, flour, or whatever you got. Now my mother on the black market, she bought cards. That wasn't allowed. But what did she get? She had to feed us. So she did. With a bought card, illegal. What did she care? She had to feed her kids.
Grandma contends Oma saved the whole family. She's the one who said you will have to leave. I know the Germans, Yamach Shamam, they're not going to stop at anything. Opa was a more easygoing person. He said, I remember the First World War when I was in the German army, they gave us off for Shabbos to eat kosher. I don't think the Germans are so bad. That was his experience. But Oma said, no, sorry, it's going to be terrible and it's going to get worse.
It was, my mother insisted that we have to leave because she knew the Germans would stop at nothing. And my father was more trusting. One of the things that I realized, she was born in Germany. Her whole background was German. My father was Alsatian. They had come from Poland and they were very proud now to be French. So their outlook was different. My father probably looked at French as being benevolent. I don't think my mother, looked at them like that. She knew that the Germans didn't, even the French.
And you have a beautiful picture of your parents.
Yeah, my father was a rabbi. As a man, within a week of that we left, they came for him. He was Rosh him. Let me it's here. This was my father.
How was your interview going?
Wow. And here's your father
and my mother.
and just. So because of your mother's insight, that really saved.
Well, it saved us, plain and simple. My father didn't want to. You see, he had sort of adopted friends. It was different. She married him, became French national, but I don't think she ever felt French. It was different. French people who had preceded him they're the ones who my mother said, il est arrivé en Amérique, lui il est en Amérique, il est en Amérique, means they're in America already, okay? Now, they got together because my father was the rabbi, okay, and they pooled some money to pay, to support him.
When was that? Shabbos Minyan or only Yom Tov?
At the beginning, it was he had some he got some money from, let's say, doing a wedding. Sometimes he took it out, sometimes a funeral, but there was no such thing as
Set salary.
as what?
A set salary.
He what?
A set salary.
No, he had no salary. Yeah, some of these people worked on Wall Street. They were they weren't rich, but they were comfortable, and they got together, and they decided to support the rabbi. We lived in an apartment on 87th. This is Israel. 87th and Broadway. One bedroom apartment, and we were fine. My mother, having been born in Germany, was very careful with money. We were never hungry, but we never lacked for anything.
Can I ask, when you were in America, did your family mix with the other Rabbonim, with the other?
You mean my father?
Your father and your mother, were they part of any specific Kehillah?
He was Rosh Kehillah of the French people, definitely. Years later, I don't remember the time frame, he was a French rabbi in New York. That was till the day he passed away. He was a French rabbi. As a matter of fact, one day, this was in the time when people were drinking liquor
And drugs.
on airlines. The airline, they were in the first class, you know, there was a young lady who got a little drunk, and I don't know what the circumstances were on an Air France flight, and she died.
First class.
I guess I don't know. So here, what is a captain or I don't know the crew going to do? She's Jewish. How they knew she was Jewish, we don't know. They land in New York at Kennedy, and they have a body on board.
And they call the
What do
embassy.
they do that? So they call the French embassy. That's correct, because it was a French airline. And the French embassy said, she's Jewish, call the rabbi. So my father got a phone call. The young lady passed away on Air France. I think they contacted her family in France and they took her back. Because I don't remember him saying, he didn't talk much, he told my sister, but he didn't, that was their decision. Otherwise it would have been a lot of, what do you call it?
Red tape.
Huh?
Red tape.
Red tape, what do you do?
And Denise, can I ask, what happened with the remainder of your family? Your parents, brothers, sisters, siblings, uncles and aunts?
My father passed away at the age of 8. Well, my father became rabbi of a shul on of the Orach Chaim for in I don't know, the French who were loyal to him, the French people, the immigrés, they all wanted to go back to France eventually. Some did, some didn't. But in the meantime, they pulled mother and they, sort of supported him. And as I said, my mother was very...
He's asking about
But in
Uncle
Europe,
Joseph.
what happened to the family in Europe?
My family,
Your wife?
Your
Opa's
parents,
family.
their-
we
Joseph.
came to America.
But the rest of the family, they didn't come to America.
I had his family. We were very fortunate. My father's brother,
Joseph.
Joseph Langer, he survived the war. I don't know how. But sadly enough, he had to. It was not. I don't remember what year, but why did they? There was a meeting of. Why did he get shot?
He left his papers home, and
He walked. The French Jews had to have papers all the time. You had to have identity, une carte d'identité, and he was walking around in Lyon. Oh, I forgot my papers. I don't have my papers. So he started to run home,
and they shot him.
and a French gendarme shot him on the street, just like that.
And he was killed?
Yeah,
And a French shot him?
in Lyon.
What about
On the
Tante
other
Clara?
hand, they were.
What about Tante Clara?
Don Clara was in America already.
No.
But his older sister survived. She was in
She was hidden.
what?
She was hidden.
They were hidden. Yeah, I had all the cousins were hidden, and after the war, they came out of hiding, and they stayed there. I don't remember. And they reestablished the shul. My father, the Rothschild. You heard of the barons? So they wanted my father to come back to Paris
Be the chief
and
rabbi.
to be the chief rabbi. By that time, it was, I think, I remember because I was in school, 1947.
And Omar
So
said no.
one second. So 1 week, so they made him an offer. So 1 week, nous rentrons. We're going back. 1 week, no, we have to stay. Another week, we're going back. This went on for a year. There was a very difficult decision. Should we go back? My father didn't exactly know what the situation he had. He had a congregation, but it wasn't like before the war. People had left. I don't know whether a lot of people were killed. Some were, but that was c'est la guerre. That was the war. And then we're going back. We're not going back. It was it was very difficult for them until they went back. They decide to visit to see, because to make a decision, such an important decision, you have to see sur place to see where you're going. So they went. It was 1947. The two of them went by ship. Of course, nobody took a plane in those days. My older sister went to my uncle in New Jersey. My twin sister went to an aunt in Brooklyn. And being that I get along, easygoing, you wouldn't think so, but I am. My brother and I stayed home alone. My mother was very smart, and she said that it's not good that they stay home alone. So she had a cousin of hers come, and she stayed with us, my parents, in order for my father to establish definitely should they go back, should they not go back. He didn't have very much here in terms of parnassa. As I said, we were never hungry, but doesn't mean that we were living in the lap of luxury. I remember for a Shavuot, my mother, we went to Brooklyn, she bought us dresses.
So what did Oma say when she was in France?
Wait a minute.
That's crucial.
What happened? Very interesting. She woke up to America. What happened? Why did she go to Brooklyn to buy us dresses for Shavuot? Because she had a brother. He happened to survive the war. He was in Bergen-Belsen. Really a very unusual human being. But that's a different story. And he had a wait a minute, what am I'm losing track. So she had...
He had a friend who was in
the
dress business,
who had a store in Brooklyn. So my mother, who with this European mentality said, oh, my brother has a friend in Brooklyn, he has girls' dresses, let me... Maybe he'll give us a good price. I come with 3 girls. So we took the subway, le métro, yeah? And we went to Brooklyn, and she bought dresses. But she was very disappointed because he did not make a special price. She was so upset. She felt it was an injustice. Here she was his good friend's sister. And he did not give her a special price.
Wake up to America.
It was hard for her to digest this attitude, but she woke up fast.
And the person who was from Bergen-Belsen?
That Uncle Moritz, he survived Bergen-Belsen. He never talked much. He was some kind of something, I don't know, he survived. He was in Bergen-Belsen, and I'll never forget, there was a newspaper, the Aufbau in German. It was printed in German in New York. The German Jews who read this newspaper couldn't wait till Wednesday. It came out on Wednesdays. And there they were listed the names of survivors. I don't remember exactly how my mother found out that Uncle Moritz, her beloved brother, she had another brother, but this one, he became very special, survived. He was in Bergen-Belsen, and he was in charge of distributing the bread. Now, if a slice of bread means life and death, you have an important position. And we heard later, people who were in Bergen-Belsen with him said he was very fair. What did it mean? In retrospect, means he didn't sell the bread to make himself rich. He gave it, let's say, a slice per person so that they would survive. We cannot imagine the conditions there. And Uncle Moritz, whom everybody adored, his name was
Meir.
He survived. He was engaged before the war to a young lady, Tante Inge, who came to America. She worked in the library in the University of Chicago. She waited for him.
In 48,
after the war, he came to America and they got married. It was a simcha you can't imagine. She waited for him 7 years.
In 1948, there was a show called the Orach Chaim, was looking for a rabbi. And one of the ladies from the ladies auxiliary knew...
No, she knew him from
Wait a minute.
from,
She knew him from Alsace-Lorraine. She said, oh, there's a French rabbi. He does speak English with an accent, but he's a very special person. So they said, okay, let's interview him. They interviewed him and they passed the interview. It was a very stressful interview, and they hired him as a rabbi. Now he had a legitimate congregation, I don't know, with 100 families, and he was there for 45 years, the same shul. 45 years.
Something which is just, this is a, you speak Hebrew, derech hagav. One of the congregants didn't want him. No, he's French, he has an accent. He voted against him. Everybody else was in favor. Within 2 years, this man who had voted against him was his best friend,
Wow.
his biggest supporter, could get anything from him.
What happened to your parents? Did they decide they wanted to... when they
My
went back
father
to
passed
France?
away in 1987.
But when they went back to France to see if they...
Okay. There, my mother saw. She saw the what was going
future.
on, and she said that. Don't forget, I'm one of 4 to my brother and 2 sisters, 3 girls. My mother determined that her daughters would not find from shidduchim.
But that saved me. I'm lucky.
Because that she would
The
not.
youth, either they passed away or they assimilated, unfortunately.
And they declined to and then they decided that he wouldn't take the position.
Correct. So, in other words, when my mother said, we won't find any from shidduchim for the girls, so my father,
Agreed.
you know what? I don't remember how we were living on 87th Street. It was shortly afterwards, I think, that Mrs. Gorlin said that told her congregation there's a rabbi who you can hire. And so he got the job. But I don't remember in between.
Did you ever go back to France
You mean to visit?
to visit?
Oh, sure. Not much, but yeah.
And in retrospect, you're happy that your parents decided...
Well, shit. My mother saved our life. It's as simple as that. Because within a week, when we were in Marseille, where all the, Marseille, they came for my father, Monsieur le Rabbin.
And how do you feel about the French, that there were many collaborators? There were also French that saved Jews, but there were many collaborators as well. And many French Jews, actually, there's a very high percentage that were taken to the camps.
Right.
And
They
didn't
were
survive.
deported.
They were
yeah.
deported. And
Deported. This one, il est déporté. This one, il est déporté. But I don't remember the fact that they were French helped them, but in the end, it was the French who also collaborated with the Germans. They were collaborating.
Denise wasn't happy with the French collaborators. She hated them.
Wait a minute. If you can't, in other words, you couldn't trust the French. Who says that they were so friendly to the Jews altogether?
And Denise, can I ask, when you were in America, when did you really first find out about the Shoah, what had happened with the camps? And
Good question. I don't remember. Because we came in 1941. I remember Pearl Harbor. We lived on my uncle's farm, and one of the farmhands, one of the men said, the Japs attacked Pearl Harbor. We didn't know what a Jap was. We didn't know what Pearl Harbor. We thought maybe Pearl Harbor was pretty, But what was your question? How did we feel?
When did you first really find out what had happened in Europe with the concentration camps and with the Shoah and the Holocaust?
I think after the war. Don't forget the Germans, I think, and the French also tried to hide this, but the people who came out, they're the ones who Yad Vashem, for instance, they're the ones who propagate, they're the ones who spread the news.
And
what happened.
At home, did your parents speak about it a lot?
No. No. The word Shoah did not come up till... No.
They protected their kids from any of these terrible things. That was the attitude at that time. We don't want our kids to know all the terrible things that happened to Klal Yisrael.
Well, first of all, my parents went back in 1947, which was already after the war, but America never felt the war. In Europe, you did. C'est avant la guerre et après la guerre. You speak French enough.
Understand a little.
Before the war and after the war. In America, you didn't have that. So that we didn't feel this, we didn't, I can't tell you when, you mean that we are lucky to have escaped?
When your mother's brother came, did you have a close connection with him?
Oh yeah. He was, first of all, she had two brothers, and she had two brothers and a sister. She had a sister in Baltimore. They had come in the 30s. So my mother quickly sent my brother to the sister, and he went to a yeshiva in Baltimore to get an education. My mother was very smart. She figured the girls will absorb the Jewishness, the Yiddishkeit from the home, but a young man needs a yeshiva, so she sent him to Baltimore. And he went there to yeshiva, the Baltimore is not like it is. Are you familiar with Baltimore? Okay. It was not like what Baltimore is today. The yeshiva world then was not what it is today. I hate to say it, but it's the survivors who established the Yiddishkeit in America. People didn't wear wigs. I have to tell you a funny story. My mother went shopping, she wore a wig. There were maybe, this was in Manhattan, 6, 7 Rebbitzins who wore wigs. Rabbi Young, Rabbi Goldstein, maybe Rebbitzin Breuer, my mother, and not many. People didn't know about wigs. The women covered
Shaitels, they never had.
a shaitel. Okay. The women came to shul, but you had very frum women who did not wear shaitels. That was the time where it was. They were very frum, but okay. So we went shopping with my mother, and to, I think, Klein on the Square. Now, Klein is not the fanciest store, but that's okay, fine.
It was a department store.
So she took her, she wanted to try on a dress. So she was in a booth, they have a curtain, and she put her shaitel on the bench, a little low bench. Where you change, there's a little bench. She turns around, the shaitel is gone. Now that's not a tragedy in itself, but so she has to go to the lost and found. And she had to explain to them what a wig was. They had no idea. It's not like today. Everybody today, a wig is fine. She had to explain. She was so embarrassed. I'll never forget.
Did she ever find the wig? Did she ever get it back?
No idea.
Can we see the picture of your parents again? You had the most amazing parents. Incredible. You must be so proud.
This is my father and mother. If you want to take a picture of my in-laws, it's right next.
And if I can ask, Denise, what message do you impart? What message do you give to your children and grandchildren and to the future generations?
From what point of view?
What you've gone through and what you've seen and what you've experienced.
I don't think we really discuss it.
She's a role model of a frum lady who follows the Torah, and that's what she wants her grandchildren to follow.
Excuse me. What is important to me is to stay religious, because if people are not religious in 2 generations, they're gone. We see it all the time. First, you have if they're not religious, they start intermarrying because everybody's equal, especially in America. America, everybody's equal. Everybody's the same. Okay, some are smarter, some are not, some are richer, some are not, some are da 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 da, you know, blah, 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 blah. But the what do you call it? When all is said and gone, unless they're religious, they intermarry, and then after a while, there's nobody there. Oh, my great-grandfather was religious. My great-grandfather was Jewish.
This is the end of Denise's interview. Now we're going to...
1 minute. I just want to come and thank. And Denise, do you know any French, of those that came from France, that did intermarry? Or people that you knew, families that...
Yeah, the Rothschild family.
No, but that you knew personally?
No.
So that's an amazing thing. So I just want to thank you both, and then you're going to have the family.
It's,
what kind of... How was this interview?
Don't forget, we did not mingle with non-from, so that we had no connection. Would you like to introduce yourself to this?
I just want to thank you both. It's been such a... For me, it's been such an honor and a privilege to be with you both.
You didn't tell me that.
I just want to thank you both. You really, your story, and I'm so grateful to you for relating, and it's so unbelievable to hear your story, and it's been such an honor and a privilege. And I just want to wish you both Mazel Brocha, and you should only have nachas and all of Hashem's blessings, and really thank you so much. It's really been an honor and a privilege.
Okay, thank you very much.
This is the next generation.
These are the ones. These are my nachas.
This is wonderful. You've got very special grandparents.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. How am I gonna be able to also?
Opa, fondly regarded as Rabbi Simon Langer, that was his French name, was one of the first rabbis in Paris, because the rabbis in Paris were very liberal, liberté, fraternité, etc., etc. But he came from Alsace, which was once a German province, and it was very, very conservative. So after the war, he was told that there are kinderlach, that's Yiddish for children, in case you didn't know, that are in monasteries, and the government, the galach, the priest, is not going to let them out. He said they're baptized, and therefore they became part of our nation. Opa did not agree. He said their parents put these children here to be safe from the Nazis, and the Shoah, and they wanted them to be returned to the Jewish nation. And he asked the priest, the galach, is there any Jewish kids? Oh no, we don't have any Jewish kids over here. Now this story, I'm not 100% sure it happened to Opa, but it's a famous story. He said, oh, let me see, what are they doing now? Oh, they're eating lunch. Oh, well, that's okay. I'm going to go into see what the nice meals. In the monastery, you give the kids nice meals. Yeah, of course, we give the best. So he went in, and there was 100 kids sitting over there. And all of a sudden, he stood up. He says, "Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad."
No, Shema Yisrael. They answered.
Shema Yisrael, and half a dozen kids got up. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Oh, so these are not Jewish kids, and that's the way how that was one of the stories how we got them out. The other stories, there was some French families, and they didn't have any children. So okay, we're adopting these children, and we want him to be part of our family. And Opa raised money from his friends in Paris, particularly the Rothschilds, who were very generous to Opa. And he said, if we give you $10,000 in cash, would you let this kid leave? Oh, $10,000 in cash, we'll let him leave. So he had to use all kinds of methods to free these kids from their Goyish environment. And then Baron Rothschild said, Opa should be honored for this, and he was given the French Légion d'honneur. And they had a big dinner at the Wall of Astoria, and the French ambassador and Baron Rothschild was there, and they gave him this.
Isn't that beautiful?
This is the French Légion d'honneur. It's a red ribbon with a. So yes.
See what you get for a lot of work.
Denise, it's so special.
So,
And your father was very happy
modest.
when he received it.
And on his jacket, he had a little red ribbon. It was very minor. So anybody who had a Legion d'honneur had this little red piece of fabric, because he was very modest. He never wanted to.
So this is the original.
Yeah. You don't think you get duplicates on this nonsense?
Why is it nonsense?
This is a big honor. It's a tremendous honor.
He was being recognized for his amazing work.
And it's wonderful that you have it.
Yep.
You must treasure it. It's very, very special.
I do. Well, you picked it. Somebody. Yeah. No, I keep it. It's. I'm proud of it.
It's wonderful.
Okay. Now this is our nachas. There's our daughter-in-law and her children, and they are all following in the right footsteps, and we're very proud of them. And they come here for snacks.
Don't do that.
What? No, they.
Baruch Hashem, I am Zocha to live here in Yerushalayim near my wonderful grandparents-in-law, and ever since joining into this wonderful family, it's beautiful to see the Masorah that they carry from before the war, from the history of Klal Yisrael. They're living on their parents' and grandparents' shoulders, and they're giving that over to their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, who, Baruch Hashem, live all around each other together here in Yerushalayim. And for us to be able to see the happiness of life, the importance of Yiddishkeit, the idea of talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their lives and what He's done for them on a day-to-day level is something that it changes our future and our children, our chinuch, and it's something which we will try to, Be'ez Hashem, pass on also to future generations. We hope that all of Klal Yisrael is zoche to always remember where we came from and where we're going to. Be'ez Hashem, Be'ez Kol Tzedek, Meher B'Imenu.
Rav Eliyahu Yari, thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
Rachem, Rachem na Hashem Elokeinu, Rachem Al Yisrael Amecha, Rachem Al Yerushalayim Irecha, Rachem Rachem, Rachem V'yatzioi Mishkan Kivohidecha V'yamalchus Beis David Meshichecha V'yalabais Hagoda V'yakodosh Rachem, Rachem, Rachem